Travolta presents The Fraser's Edge. Hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore. Recapping the early hits and misses era. Enjoy the episode. Hello, folks.
Hello, everybody.
It feels like only yesterday we recorded our episode on Child of Darkness, Child of Light, and kicked off The Fraser's Edge, the second installment of Travolting.
Yeah.
Feels like we just started, and now we're already finished our first era of the show.
Yeah, it's like we're closing the book to the first chapter.
Closing the chapter. Closing the book on the early hits and misses era.
Yeah. What I think to get this started off, it should be said that this was an easy era to know when to cap it off at.
Yes.
Because, like, next week and the week after and the week after that is, like, very clearly going to be Fraser's send-off, rocket ship moment. He literally does back-to-back all bangers.
Because right after this, it's George of the Jungle, Gods and Monsters, Blast from the Past, The Mummy, Dudley Do Right. And then the rest are after that. It like continues.
Yeah.
But
And so I feel like this was last week. Thank you for listening last week to our Still Breathing.
Yes.
Very sweaty episode.
Yes. It was hot in here.
I never made this joke on the last episode. I should have. You know what Brendan Fraser's character's last name was in Still Breathing?
What?
Well, his first name's Fletcher. His last name is McBracken. More like McBracken my neck.
Whoa! That's right, folks. If you think we got less horny since last week, you are sadly mistaken. But no, we're finished with the first era of the show. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think the biggest thing that I think we get to do, which is something that we weren't able to do in the first season, is this whole point of the show is to like sort of
track the arc
of
a movie star. And now we have someone to compare it to. Yes.
John Travolta.
Yes, we have a comparison. And I do want to quickly emphasize something.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we get a lot of shit sometimes from our guests about not doing the TV. I'm specifically talking about one guest. And I finally realized, like, the pitch of this show is that we are tracking the movie star career.
Yeah.
The movie stars.
Right.
Not the movie and TV stars. We're tracking their movie star personas.
Right.
And I just want to emphasize that point.
Yeah.
Because I've never really been able to concise it down that much.
Yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to.
Well, it's a different culture of stardom.
Yeah, because we're not talking about we're not talking about the bulk of their work. We're not talking about necessarily them as an actor. We're talking about them as a movie star.
Yeah. So, I'm always stuck in a pickle when we get in these episodes because what is the format?
Yeah, like how
for retrospectives?
There's no real way to start. It's a conversation.
Yeah, and so I mean, I guess it's like I want to start off with a comparison because what's fascinating about Fraser is without even looking up his bio, you can sort of get the essence of that. He starts in the bottom and works his way up.
Yeah.
He starts as a background. He starts as Sailor Number One. Then he gets his TV movie. Then he gets a feature length main role. Then he gets a small indie role. And then it just keeps going on and on from there.
It's the same start as Travolta, but it goes differently.
I think it's vastly different.
Well, the first four are the same.
They're very parallel.
Because Child of Darkness, Child of Light is just The Devil's Reign. Dogfight is just
Carrie.
Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Or Girl Teased Until Proven Innocent is just The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. And Encino Man is just Saturday Night Fever. I mean, very different movies, but essentially
I would put it more towards Grease probably, and like, School Ties is a Saturday Night Fever.
It's like the star. Yeah, that's you
got to flip him.
That's
because
fair point.
He did Saturday Night Fever and then Grease.
Yeah,
whereas Fraser's doing like the Grease then Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah. Saturday Night Fever and School Ties are the ones that prove that they're an actor.
Yeah,
and Grease and Encino Man are the ones that prove that they're a movie star.
Yes,
you're correct in that.
Yeah, and so they're a little backwards flip, but he doesn't. But then what's interesting is
whereas Travolta skyrockets right after that.
Fraser does not.
Yeah. Fraser like kind of plateaus.
Well, I think we just have to be very forward and honest about the qualities of their major hits.
Yeah.
Because Travolta gets a high-grossing musical.
Yeah.
From a famed actual Broadway musical.
Yeah.
And also tag on to the fact that he is a heartthrob with Olivia Newton-John, and that he gets an Oscar nomination for Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, Saturday Night Fever and Grease are culture-defining movies.
Encino Man and School Ties are not.
No. Encino Man was a hit, and that's what you can say
That's
for it.
all you can really say about it. And so School Ties, not really much of a hit at all. It's a pretty decent movie, but I wouldn't call it a Saturday Night Fever, personally.
So his career sputters on its ascent. It doesn't go down, but he kind of plateaus for a little bit. And most of what we've covered in this era has been the plateau.
Yeah. And so, but I think it's a good thing to maintain is like Fraser never quite leaves the quote unquote working actor stage.
Yes.
He gets to the working actor stage fairly quickly, I will say.
Yes.
Because it's 92, which is Encino Man, and 91 is Child of Darkness, Child of Light.
Yeah.
His first background role, which he gets like a billing for some reason.
Oddly.
Which maybe it's because he was cut from a scene or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth saying that, like, you know, he very quickly gets, like Travolta gets his TV movies starring and then his feature film starring. And from there, he is just a working actor. He goes into 20 Bucks, where it's just a supporting side character. He gets a few, little bit of screen time. I wouldn't say he's a protagonist of that movie, but he's somewhat important. Younger and Younger, not very.
Yeah, I mean he's the co-lead.
Yeah, co-lead.
We talked a lot. Like at this point, he's kind of in co-lead to a big star role.
Yeah.
Younger and Younger, it's him and it's Sutherland and Fraser.
Yeah.
Son-in-Law, he's only in it for a cameo. With Honors, it's
him,
Joe Pesci, and Fraser. Airheads, he's the
Adam Sand.
Well, he's the lead of that movie. But the draw is it's Sandler's first non-SNL.
It's Sandler's first non-SNL, and we also get Steve Buscemi in there too.
Who's fine. Like Buscemi's an eternal supporting player. But like the draw of that movie is Adam Sandler's doing movies.
Yeah. And then In the Army Now,
it's another just Pauly Shore thing. Cameo.
The Scout is
Albert Brooks and Fraser. Passion of Darkly Noon, he's still the co-lead.
But he's kind of spearheading that.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's Ashley Judd in that?
Ashley Judd. Yeah.
It's like kind of Ashley Judd and Fraser.
Yeah.
Viggo Mortensen and Fraser.
Yeah.
Glory Days, he's only in it for a scene.
Yeah.
It's a Ben Affleck movie.
Now and then
he's only in it for a scene.
One
it's
scene.
An odd Rosie O'Donnell headliner.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm in the movie for a few scenes. I'm the lead character, whatever.
Yeah. Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy.
It's a Kids in the Hall movie. He's in it for a scene.
And then Mrs. Winterbourne, it's him and Ricky Lake.
Yeah, Ricky Lake is the lead. He's the supporting character. But he's kind of starting to become the draw.
Yeah, he's starting to.
Like, even though these have been the flop movies, we've kind of been tracking how it's been flipping. Up through like The Scout, like he is not the draw. He's there. He's the the supporting player to your Albert Brookses or your Joe Pesci.
Yeah, he's the new kid on the block in The Scout.
And then aside from the cameo work, like Glory Days now and then, he starts subtly becoming the draw of these movies. These movies just make no impact, so we don't think about that. But like, he's the draw of Mrs. Winterbourne. Like,
yeah,
it's like Ricky Lake hasn't been too big yet.
Yeah, he's a supporting character in Twilight of the Golds, but
he's kind
of the draw in that movie too.
Golds. Still breathing. He's the lead. He's the top billed. The movie didn't do anything, so you don't think about it. But it's like, oh, it's a Fraser headliner.
Yeah,
and those are what really tee him up, so that when he kind of goes back into Encino Man mode for George of the Jungle,
it's a knockout of the park.
Yeah, he's the lead. He's not playing second fiddle to Pauly Shore and Sean Astin again. He's the lead.
Yeah.
He is George, the titular George of the Jungle.
Yeah. And then
and from there on out, like we shouldn't talk too much about the upcoming movies, but like in Gods and Monsters, he's playing second fiddle to Ian McKellen, but that's a highly prestigious movie, so it's aside the point. But everything he's done, even if he didn't have the meteoric rise of Travolta, he's teed himself up for a lot of success.
And I think this is to go back to the comparison. What's important is Fraser did not make the mistake that Travolta did, which was when he made his 2 starring role movies, School Ties and Encino Man. The moment that he had a flop afterwards, he didn't cower back into...
he didn't retreat.
He didn't retreat into just being like A-list only, like Travolta did. He took those cameos and supporting roles and worked alongside of greater actors to build his, skill set.
Because Travolta flopped with Blowout, one of the best movies ever made.
Absolutely.
And he just retreated, into his Staying Alive, Two of a Kinds, Your Basement's the Dumb Waiters.
Yes.
The Experts, all the hits. Look Who's Talking.
All the hits.
Look Who's Talking was kind of his lifeline.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to say, like, you could say, well, if you follow that logic, then that would mean Fraser had Encino Man, School Ties was all 92. And if you count everything in between, just kind of a slow build until George of the Jungle, that means it was 5 years until George of the Jungle. Whereas so if you count that as a rut, which you can't really call it a rut because it's not that every movie he's doing is a flop.
Yeah.
They're not all flops.
He's been working.
He's been working. Whereas John Travolta, on the other hand, if you count like what he's been doing in between Blowout and then his next big movie, which is Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, Look Who's Talking, technically.
Technically.
It's not like a critical hit, but it is his next big hit.
Okay. So then to that point then, if you count Look Who's Talking, which was 1989.
Yeah.
Then prior to that,
it's 10 years.
About 8 years.
Yeah.
Blowout was 81.
Okay, yes.
Look Who's Talking's. So we're talking about a 5-year difference and a 8-year difference.
And you can still kind of count Pulp Fiction.
Well, that's the thing. It's like
that's the movie that makes him a megastar again.
Are we going to count the sequels as hits?
They were. I mean, the second one was.
The second one was also a hit.
Yeah. I mean, they were hit movies, so they didn't do anything for him. It's kind of the weird Travolta thing.
If we hypothetically just said that Look Who's Talking is not going to count as his next hit, let's just say as then that drastically changes the game. Because you went from 1981 Blowout to 1992, 1994 with Pulp Fiction. And that is a 13-year difference. 13 years.
Ooh.
It's a lot of fucking time.
Oofda.
As opposed to Brendan Fraser, who goes from Encino Man to George of the Jungle in 5 years.
Yeah.
And it is hit after hit after hit after George of the Jungle, much like Brendan Fraser after Pulp Fiction. Yeah. Hit after hit after hit. So that's an interesting topic of like, maybe one of them had a better agent than the other. But ultimately, I think it comes down to like the projects that they decide to choose.
It's about the projects they decide to choose, the roles they want to take as movie stars. Fraser is more willing to be a supporting player. He's more collaborative than Travolta, seemingly.
Yeah.
Travolta needs to be at the top. Fraser is willing to be in the second. Fraser is willing to have a more steady ascent.
Yeah.
Like a slower, steadier ascent. To like lock in success than Travolta, who kind of just jumped up and then fell. And
had to stay at the quote unquote top.
Yeah.
Top being
Fraser
leading role.
Was a safer approach. It took longer, but it got him there, and he stayed for longer than Travolta did at the start.
At the start,
yes.
Yeah. And I would say like Brendan Fraser's reign from where it kicked off in George of the Jungle to what will we say?
I would consider the Brendan Fraser like reign of success to basically be George of the Jungle through G.I. Joe: Rise of Cobra.
Really?
I think even if they're not like mega successes, he is in Crash. He is in Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is a hit. He's in The Mummy 3. He's in Inkheart. These are movies that exist, and he's relevant. He's in The Fairly Odd Parents, and yes, we will be talking about that because that is a movie.
Interesting.
So I like Fraser's reign, I would say, is basically from 99 to 2009. It's like a 10-year reign.
97 to 2009.
Okay, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that would
That's like 12 years.
Yeah.
That's 12 years of general mainstream success.
Yeah. Whereas Travolta from Pulp Fiction, we're getting a little ahead of the early hits and misses era, but like I'm just tracking like this all starts from the foundations.
Yeah.
This is Fraser's foundation.
Fraser was more willing to build a foundation than Travolta was.
And so Travolta went Pulp Fiction, and then what do we do from A-list from Travolta exploitation? It was Pulp Fiction from 94 until...
Pulp Fiction was... For the A-list era for Travolta, we did Pulp Fiction through Bolt in 2008.
And that was a 14-year reign, you might say. But I have to say, in between that 14-year reign is Battlefield Earth.
Yes.
So this... Jeff and I have...
We're not relitigating this.
Yeah, Jeff and I have already...
relitigating
Jeff and I have litigated this whole conversation of like, how long really is the A-list era?
Yeah.
Really? Because it's
we're not relitigating this.
But I think it goes to say about Brendan Fraser's reign of like, is it as questionable as Travolta's?
Yeah. And Fraser has the added thing that he's in another comeback period now.
Oh, and that's the other thing too.
Because Travolta like starts strong, sputters out quickly, has a comeback in the 90s, sputters out again around 2010.
And is forever.
Yeah, and is still in the sputtered out zone.
Yeah.
Fraser, slow ascent, pops to the top, sputters out, is in a comeback as we speak.
Yes.
We're recording this on his birthday. Happy birthday, Brendan.
Happy birthday, Brendan.
Just wanted to say that. But yeah, so I think that's essentially the main thing I want to talk about with this first era. It's just that was a strong foundation.
Yeah.
But I do think we should talk about our favorite movies and our favorite episodes from this era.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe like any underrated or worst movies and all that stuff.
100%.
So
worst movie, Twilight of the Golds. Hard to beat. I mean, In the Army Now, also rough.
In the Army Now is pretty bad.
In the Army Now do be having the good joke with the bazooka, though.
Kids in the Hall is kind of but no, I'm looking Glory Days, Airheads with Honors. Son-in-Law was, I don't know, Jeff. Younger and Younger is pretty fucking bad.
Younger and Younger was at least a little funny. It was pretty wild.
But like Child of Darkness, Child of Light's kind of goofy.
Yeah, it was bad.
But you're saying Twilight of the Golds?
I think Twilight of the Golds is
just because
low
of its
tier.
like branding and messaging.
Yeah, it's a bad movie.
I'm gonna say Younger and Younger.
Younger and Younger.
Younger and Younger is a very nonsensical movie. What?
Nothing. I was getting some shit from the Peanut Gallery.
Oh. Yeah, Younger and Younger is, I would say, my least favorite movie. Favorite movie. Oh boy, this is a tough one. Because I liked With Honors a good amount, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a tough one to think about my favorite.
I mean, honestly, can I be really honest?
Yeah.
In terms of where his role, I liked him the most.
Yeah.
My favorite Brendan Fraser role, Now and Then.
Good movie.
He has one fucking scene in that movie, but he knocks it out of the park. Like, I think it's such a good ass movie. Or good ass scene for him. I don't think it's the best movie. Ooh, Passion of Darkly Noon.
Good movie.
That's a pretty good ass movie.
Good movie.
And then, but yeah, from what I remember, I think With Honors, I liked With Honors a good amount. That was actually a decent movie.
Encino Man, good movie too.
I mean, Encino Man wasn't my type of movie.
$20, the best movie we ever did. It was fine.
It was all right. I don't know. It's like, it's hard to say. Like, there's no smash hits in this era for me. It's all kind of like, it's pretty good. Yeah. That's all I really have to say about it. It's like, it's pretty good. It's all okay. It's all right. Thought School Ties was pretty good.
I think Passion of Darkly Noon might be the best one.
I think you might be right. I think it might be Passion.
I know you weren't a fan, but I also liked Airheads.
I did not like Airheads.
I mean, Airheads is it's just like a cult classic.
The audience is loving like how different we are.
Yes.
How the same we are, but also how different we are.
Yeah, it's almost like we're made for each other. I am hastily assembling a list of all the movies we've covered and looking at my Letterboxd scores of them.
Oh, yeah.
So I can best determine what I, in the moment, thought was the best one.
Yeah, in the moment, quote unquote.
What if it was Glory Days?
LOL. That's a dumb movie.
I kind of like that movie. You know I did.
I know you did.
Mrs. Winterbourne. That was a bug nuts movie.
That was a bug nuts movie.
Of the Gold.
If I had to pick like an underrated, if I had to pick like a favorite one and an underrated one, I've already said my least favorite one is Younger and Younger. If I had to pick like an underrated one, I might say.
Okay, I'm looking at my scores. My favorites, and I agree with this. My favorites were Passion of Darkly Noon and Airheads.
Okay,
those are my two favorites. My least favorites were In the Army Now and The Twilight of the Golds.
I would probably say my favorite is Passion of Darkly Noon and With Honors, and then my least favorite is Younger and Younger. I want to say I always like picking an underrated one. I do think I think Now and Then has some pretty good moments outside of Fraser's cameo that I did enjoy, that I did like a lot. Yeah. So I would because if I remember from that episode, we said Now and Then it's like, it's like what movie did we compare it to? Compared it to
Now and Then?
Stand By Me.
Yeah, it's Stand By. It's like a female
girls.
Stand By Me.
But like in a worthy way where it's worth watching.
Yes.
And I would highly recommend people watch that movie. So I would say Now and Then, most underrated.
Yeah, Now and Then is worth checking out. It's a well-made movie.
Yeah.
But there aren't, like you said, there aren't really any undeniable
hits
in this era. But like we said, build a strong foundation for our man.
Yeah, if you really think about it, a lot of this is just an acting reel for him. I mean, think about all the cameos.
Yeah.
They're all acting reel length.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah, you put that scene from Now and Then on your little reel, you ship it off to the head of Disney, you're like, hey.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's kind of a smart move in that regard.
Yeah.
But he's still a working actor. He's still doing well. So yeah, I mean, it all makes me look forward to like where he's going in the future. And nothing ever turned me off of him as an actor. I mean, I did say that Twilight in the Gold's worst performance for sure. I think it's his worst performance in Twilight of the Golds.
Yeah. Twilight of the Golds is rough.
It's very rough for him. Very, very rough. So, otherwise, like I even think his performance in Younger and Younger, as bad as that movie is, he knows what movie.
Oh, he's good in that.
He knows what.
He's good in Younger and Younger.
I'm not going to say he's great, but I think
But he's good.
He understands the assignment.
Yeah, he gets it.
He understands the assignment in Younger and Younger. Donald Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland again. He's like playing the organ. I feel bad about that episode.
Why?
It's like 25 minutes long. That movie had enough crazy juice to get us to at least 30.
Maybe.
Like I definitely feel like we could have ran with some nonsense for a little longer in that one.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was kind of checked out.
We were checked out that day.
Were we?
Yes, we were.
Why were we checked out that day?
I can't remember. Something had happened.
Yeah.
We were just tired.
Yeah, probably. Jeff and I work probably an average of 60 hours a week, which
plus.
I know we have some fans who probably work fucking 100 hours a week, in which I say, you are a victim of capitalism. You should not be doing that.
Yeah. Also, I want to quickly say thank you to everyone who had us on their Spotify Wrapped.
Oh, yeah.
That was very nice to see.
This is kind of a perfect time to do like our era recap. Retrospective.
Yeah, because this episode's airing Oh, the week after Christmas.
Yeah. The 30th?
Yes.
It'll be the last episode.
Yeah, this is the last episode of the year.
Of 2022.
Yeah.
It's kind of perfect.
Yeah, it's incredibly perfect.
Yeah. So, and also just thanks for folks for listening to us and keeping on board with our Fraser's Edge podcast. I think when we first came up with this idea to do Travolting, I mean, I knew it was, mostly a bit, but
I've never done a bit in my entire life.
But I have to concede and say, like, this has become like a nice,
it's a nice palette
version of like investigating the arcs and careers of movie stars.
Yes.
And it, every once in a while we stumble upon a movie that sparks my interest a little bit. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. Like, there's actually something good here.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of it before in my life, never seen it before. Like Passion Darkly Nude, I've never heard of that movie in my entire life.
No one has.
No one has. But it's actually a good movie. And also special thanks to all of our guests that we've had on. We've had some really, really good guests.
Yeah, in this first segment.
And we got a lot more guests coming.
Folks, I would just like to say from this point on, every single one of our episodes is a guest.
No shit, really.
That's not entirely true. Our next episode does not have a guest. And we have one movie. In a few months. Does not have a guest.
In a few months?
Yeah, and then there's another month of guests, and then there's like 3 months off.
Oh my god. Wow.
Yeah. It's hefty.
Yeah.
So look forward to that coming up.
Yeah. I don't really have any more thoughts and notes about Fraser in the early hits and misses era. I think for the most part, it's, it's a pretty standard, I won't say mediocre, but kind of like a chill foundational climb.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like it's somebody who listens to their agent.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what this
not just listens to their agent, but is smart. He understands his utility as an actor.
Travolta did not listen to his agent after Blowout. I'm sure his agent was like, you need to like start taking
Travolta doesn't understand his utility as an actor.
No, he doesn't, and he still doesn't. Which is, as we hope folks checked out our Paradise City episode, but
yes.
like Travolta. Thank you. It seems like Travolta has still not learned the lesson.
Yes,
and I'm not hopeful he will be.
Mm.
And it gives me hope that we're covering Fraser in this perfect moment where he is on a comeback.
Yes. And I cannot wait until we get caught up and we can kind of track his little comeback period. We don't get to cover Batgirl anymore because fuck Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
But we do get to cover a lot of cool movies that he's been doing recently.
Yeah.
And that's a long way down the pike, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
And for right now, you folks can look forward to next week. We're jumping into the next era, which we're calling the mainstream success era.
Yeah.
With George of the Jungle. Watch out for that tree. That's right, folks. George of the Jungle next week. Joined by a fun guest or two, maybe 3.
What?
Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for listening.
Wait a minute.
Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on. As a reminder, we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at TravoltingPod, TravoltingPodcast@gmail.com. If you have any emails, r/Travolting on Reddit. Find me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney.
You can find me on Instagram at Stuart185.
Special thanks, as always, to Rebecca Johnson for our graphic design and Michael Van Bodegum Smith for our theme music.
And happy holidays, folks.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
This is coming out the 30th of December.
We'll see you next
week for George of the Jungle.
And next year.
Yes, next week and next year for George of the Jungle. Have a great one, folks. Happy 2023.